Hello and welcome. My name is Talitha if you don't know me, and in today's video we are exploring the liberation of vocal expression and self-expression with particular focus on vocal embodiment. This video is the final installment of a masterclass series I've been sharing on liberating the blocks to voice and self-expression. In the first masterclass, we explored the objection that the body holds to self-expression and how that manifests not only as a block, but as a literal somatic pattern, a physiological shaping that presents as a brace, a physiological brace against motor impulse and self-expression. And we explored what it looks like to map that out a little bit and begin to integrate it. In the second masterclass, we explored self-expression as deeply linked to our physical expression and motor impulse, with particular emphasis on the face, the mouth, jaw, and tongue. And we moved through a guided practice to begin to open up the face, jaw, and tongue, literally create more space in the tissue and begin to re-engage these pathways of expression in the body. So we're really exploring vocal expression and self-expression through a somatic lens, meaning a lens that's deeply rooted in the body, because ultimately to express ourselves into the world through our voice and through our sort of embodied self-expression, we literally need our physical body. And so we can do a lot of work when it comes to mindset and belief system, and that's really important and significant. But if we're not grounding that into the body, we can sort of make all of this progress up here, but nothing really changes in the way we experience our self-expression. We don't necessarily feel more resourced in the moment with others to fully express and embody who we are. And that's because a big component of self-expression is physiological, and it's rooted in motor impulse. I also have a little video all about that, the sacred impulse, and how that is deeply connected to light language and intuitive channeling. That's also linked down below if you want to watch that. Ultimately, belief system work is really, really powerful, but we have to acknowledge that there's conscious belief system and there's subconscious belief system, and our subconscious is our body, right? And if we're only working with our conscious belief systems, mainly through the sort of domain of our mind and sort of intellectual awareness, cerebral awareness, then we can sort of do the belief system reprogramming without ever touching the deeper subconscious belief systems that you might not be aware of, that are literally active in your body and that will continue to present as a sort of quote-unquote block in your journey to self-expression. Because our subconscious is in the body, the easiest way to work with the subconscious is in the language of the body. And so somatic practice is super powerful as a modality to begin to call these subconscious stories up from the surface to our conscious mind so we can begin to work with them more consciously, but also to just integrate a lot of these unresolved experiences that live in the body as well as the subconscious and contribute to overall belief system matrices that we sort of operate through consciously and subconsciously. So throughout this masterclass series, we've been predominantly focusing on the quote-unquote block, right? But ultimately, when it comes to integrating our blocks, what are we sort of moving towards? What is the intention? And ultimately, in my perspective, it is vocal embodiment, right? We begin to integrate these stories that are deeply unresolved in our life experience, and that through integration and resolution give us almost this access to who we are again, right? We begin to call home aspects of who we truly are. We begin to remember those aspects as well as learn to embody and express them. And we come into deep, intimate relationship with the aspects of ourselves that we call a block, but typically is just a sort of loving, protective self-defense mechanism that very often gets deeply shadowed. All right, so ultimately this path is not about rejecting anything. We're not getting rid of anything. We're not getting rid of our blocks. We're actually calling home all of the aspects of who we are, right? And this is vocal embodiment. So I want to introduce you to the vocal vibrational bandwidth. This is a concept / tool that I've developed and often use in teaching and guiding vocal awakening and vocal embodiment. I'm going to draw a circle, okay? And this circle represents our vocal vibrational spectrum. And while this looks like a circle on the sheet of paper, I really want you to imagine this as a sphere. Okay, this is the whole integrated, embodied truth of all that you are. Okay, your vocal vibrational spectrum. It, in essence, is really infinite in nature. There's not an end, there's not a beginning, right? But because it is a sphere, it is whole, it is complete, there is nothing missing, there is nothing lacking. This is not just the aspects of you that are good or that are identified as spiritual, this is all of you. Because ultimately, when it comes to wholeness, right, embodied wholeness, we really need to understand that that only exists when we allow the fullness of what is, right? The positive, the negative, the high, the low, the conscious, the subconscious, the light, the shadow, all right? We want to include everything within the spectrum. And because all is present within the spectrum, it's all integrated, it's all embodied, it is whole. Then we have the vocal vibrational bandwidth. Okay, now if we notice here, the bandwidth is quite linear, all right? We can imagine maybe there's a little center to that bandwidth, okay? And while the spectrum is everything that you are, right, whole, embodied, complete, your bandwidth is what you as a human in this moment in time have the capacity to hold, embody, and express from within your spectrum. So we can acknowledge that, like, in this moment in time, we are not embodying the full spectrum of our vocal vibrational experience, right? Part of what you could say we're doing here as human beings through our sort of spiritual journey or path of healing and integration is learning to hold, become, and embody more and more of what we truly are, all right? And so we can understand that as the vocal vibrational bandwidth, all right? This is what you are actually able to or have the capacity to be with and embody within your spectrum. Part of vocal embodiment is essentially expanding, integrating, and enriching the vocal vibrational bandwidth so that it's able to hold more and more of the spectrum. So within the vocal vibrational bandwidth is everything you are essentially comfortable holding, embodying, experiencing, and expressing, okay? Everything outside of the bandwidth is what you have yet to embody, right? But is not separate from you. And I really want you to orient to this through the lens of capacity, because very often when we are working with embodiment, we can subconsciously, unconsciously get caught in this sort of not enoughness practice where we're so aware of everywhere we're not embodied, everything we still need to integrate, everything we still need to work on, that we begin to actually affirm to ourselves all of these areas we're not yet good enough in, or whole enough in, or embodied enough in. Okay, and we can use this language of can or can't, right? Like, I can't express my power and confidence. I can't express my anger and boundaries, okay? And the sort of issue with that is can and can't are completely static, sort of binary states, okay? And when we're stuck in the can't and we're just working towards this ideal of can, we can often, simply by orienting to the can't, keep ourselves within that space. And this is a little bit of mindset work in and of itself, right? The truth is there's no binary. It's not that you can't be confident in your expression, right? It's more like sometimes you are in spaces and having experiences where you don't have the capacity to be confident in your expression. But there might be people in your life or spaces or places in your life where you find you have capacity to be more of yourself, to be more confident. Okay, so capacity is a living experience that is fluid, that is mutable. It's always changing. Capacity can increase or it can decrease. And so I really want to encourage you to lose the language of like, I can't set boundaries. I can't embody my authentic expression. Okay? Because then you get stuck in this space of can't, and you're constantly waiting for an experience that is big enough and transformative enough to convince you that you can. And very often that's just like not how it works, right? So if we lose that language and we stick to capacity, we actually begin to recognize it's never can or can't. There are moments where you have capacity for and moments where you don't. And there are ways that you can show up for yourself that will increase your capacity, and things that you do or places that you go or people you interact with, right, that are going to decrease your capacity. And once we begin to orient to capacity, then there's a question that always arises in response. If I say, I don't have the capacity to get on stage and sing in front of everyone right now, there's an immediate question that follows, which is, what would increase my capacity to do that? What is currently affecting or limiting my capacity to do that, right? And this is why capacity as an orientation is so powerful, because what we do limits or expands the bandwidth, okay? So if I want to embody more authenticity, okay, there are going to be practices, belief systems, mindsets, experiences, people, communities that are going to nourish my capacity to hold more or less of my confidence, of my authenticity. And over time, as we begin to increase our capacity, right, increase our bandwidth with regard to what we're really comfortable holding, experiencing, embodying, and expressing, we begin to pull in or source more of, receive more access to our vocal vibrational spectrum. That is a horrible drawing. See if I can fix that for a second. This is your source, the source of you, the wholeness of you. We begin to build our capacity to draw more from that spectrum and actually hold it. So the reason I've termed this the vocal vibrational bandwidth is because I've found that if there's a tone, a literal sound that we are not comfortable making, right? It's really challenging to bring it through the voice with ease, right? An easeful expression. It typically is reflective of a vibration, right? Of a texture of experience that we are not comfortable holding. So for example, if we have a hard time with the sound or tone of anger or rage, right? It's challenging for us to easily source and express our anger and our rage. We're probably going to be challenged in life with feeling our own anger, right? Being attuned to the anger signals of the body and setting boundaries, okay? Same thing with like pleasure, for example. If we're not comfortable with sounds related to pleasure, okay, which most of us are not, we're probably going to be challenged in our life when it comes to not only sourcing our pleasure, okay, but expressing it and embodying it. So this bandwidth is really speaking to the vibrational texture that we are comfortable not only experiencing within ourselves, okay, but expressing outwards into the world and to others. So very often what lies beyond the sort of boundaries of our vocal vibrational bandwidth are a lot of our shadows, okay? The aspects of us we don't want to acknowledge, we feel shame around, maybe we're afraid of them, okay? We've been shamed for them, maybe culturally or personally. We've maybe been harmed by those qualities in others, and so we're afraid to embody and connect to those energies or vibrations within ourselves, all right? And very often beyond that bandwidth are then aspects of our power, of our truth, of our confidence, of our authenticity, of our compassion. So if we're not able to integrate a lot of the shadow to our vocal vibrational spectrum, integrate that into the bandwidth, it can also sort of block, in a sense, our access to some of these other qualities, right? These qualities that we might really long for, right? Because if I'm afraid of being seen as angry or as inappropriate or as weird or as ugly, okay, I'm automatically going to set up a very strict bandwidth when it comes to opening my voice and expressing myself, right? It's protective. I need to make sure that no sound or tone or expression comes through my voice that's going to make me look bad, that's going to make me feel ashamed, or that's going to make me be rejected by someone, okay? And so when we have shadow in general in our vocal vibrational spectrum that we've not integrated into this bandwidth, we're automatically going to have way more barriers to self-expression. All right, and this is the subconscious part of you that's like, okay, there's so much about us that I don't think is okay and that we're not allowed to be, and we need to make sure that no one ever sees that part of us. So we're going to set up all these barriers, right? All of these boundaries, okay? All of these walls, okay, when it comes to our self-expression, so that none of that ever comes out. And this can really impact our ability to open up our channel, all right? And it's going to impact our ability to connect to these other aspects of our vocal vibrational spectrum: the authenticity, the power, the compassion, okay, the truth, the confidence. It's going to make it harder to connect to those other aspects, right? Because they can't get in with all of these barriers set up, right? So part of the practice of expanding the bandwidth, we acknowledge that we can't just remove the barriers altogether. Rather, it's sort of this slow practice and process of calling in more and more shadow, right? Integrating more and more shadow. And the more comfortable we get integrating these shadows, these aspects of us that we don't think are allowed to be, exist, and express, this bandwidth starts to expand, okay? And it's able to hold more and more of our overall spectrum. The other piece here is that you can only go as high as you can go low. So a lot of folks are really interested in like going into the high vibrations of their spectrum and of their expression and only engaging with higher energy centers and like higher vibe. All right, and they sort of ignore the lower centers and the lower sort of aspect of our vocal vibrational spectrum. The challenge with that is you actually can only go as high as you can go low, right? If you're not willing to go into shadow, you're only going to be able to access so much of your light, all right? And we can sort of get into this pattern of almost performing the high vibrational expression and performing the light, okay, without really embodying it authentically, because we're not touching any of the shadow, the underworld, the foundation to our expression. We could also look at the bandwidth this way, right? It's not necessarily horizontal, right? We could look at it any which way, right? We could also say that like this is the higher vibration and the lower vibration, okay? Ultimately, we're just talking about our capacity to hold the sort of entirety of who and what we are. So an example of this could be, I want to feel more power in my life. I want to have less people crossing my boundaries. I want to have more power encoded and integrated into my voice and my expression, right? So I experience more respect from others, all right? But if we're not working with the shadow aspect of that, it's going to be really challenging to truly integrate that form of expression and that aspect of our vocal vibrational spectrum. Okay, because the shadow, right, a deeper fear or story might be, I'm not allowed to be angry. Okay, and anger is bad, and being an angry person is bad, and having angry expression is bad. Now, the thing is, anger is so deeply integrated with power, right? Anger is a literal sign coming from our body that a boundary is being crossed, right? So if we can't feel anger, we can't feel when someone is violating us. Anger also gives you the energy to do something brave, right? To protect yourself. And if we've been harmed by other people's anger, or we've been shamed for expressing our own anger, and we're not comfortable touching that aspect of our vocal vibrational spectrum, it's going to be really hard to start engaging our power, right? And start feeling like we can set more boundaries in our life. So very often we have to work with that sort of lower end of the spectrum, okay? And the shadow before we can start to call in some of those other desires. And we can also work with them simultaneously, of course, right? But we have to include the shadow aspect. If there's a vibration you want to call into your life more and call it into your voice and into your expression, there's very likely a shadow, right, that is literally setting up a limit, a boundary in your capacity to actually be with that expression. Now we're going to start really doing a little bit of mapping here. We're going to look at our current vocal vibrational bandwidth, like as of this moment, okay? And one thing that we can do is we can start to notice what are the qualities or principles or vibrations that I have integrated within my bandwidth, okay? And this is important because sometimes when we're doing the embodiment work, we can get caught up in all the ways we're not embodied enough. And so we just want to really affirm to ourselves all of the forms of expression and experience that we have integrated. Okay, so maybe compassion comes up and you want to mark compassion here on your vocal vibrational bandwidth, and you can write that on your piece of paper somewhere. Maybe you are comfortable with sadness, right? And you're comfortable to feel that and to share it with others. You can mark that on your spectrum, okay? And just really start to notice all the ways you're already embodying so much of your vocal vibrational spectrum, all the ways you have cultivated capacity in your life to be, embody, and express who you are. Now, the other piece that comes up is that we can sometimes get so comfortable in what we already have integrated, all these points of expression, of experience, right, that we've integrated, that we can almost fall into those forms of expression as like a comfortable groove. Okay, so maybe we've awakened our facilitator voice, the voice that we use when we like guide a meditation or teach something. Okay, and that's brought a lot of confidence online, but we find that we're comfortable with others if we're using our facilitator voice and we're teaching and guiding something, but if we're not in that position and we're not able to engage that part of our voice, we actually are a little uncomfortable or a little anxious, right? So I'm comfortable to lead the circle, but if I have to share in someone else's circle and share vulnerably, then suddenly it becomes a little challenging or difficult. Okay, so we acknowledge what we have integrated and we celebrate that and we affirm that. We start to notice, are there qualities that we've gotten so comfortable with that we feel good about when we're in them, and that we almost just start to exclusively live in without ever sort of pushing the boundaries and exploring these edges of our bandwidth, not just with ourselves, but especially with others. So a perfect example of this would be like vocalists, right? Singers who they learn the vocal technique, right? They really find their voice and their tone, and they get really good at what they're doing. And they almost find this really integrated, embodied space, but it becomes a little bit of like a comfort groove, right? And so they're not actually comfortable to go into the aspects of their expression that are like ugly or weird or creepy, or even maybe feel inappropriate or strange. Okay, they just choose to stay in that little space where they've learned to feel really good and confident about their expression. Now that space is a beautiful space, but ultimately if we're interested in vocal embodiment, we learn to be in right relationship with that space, to honor and affirm all the integration and embodiment we've done, but then to get curious about what's beyond it. Okay, and so what I'm always curious about is yes, acknowledging where I'm embodied, but also where am I still disembodied? Where do I feel tension when it comes to being in and expressing something? And that's what I get really interested in integrating, right? Because I know that the more I integrate those shadows and those places of discomfort and fear and tension and contraction and brace, the more I open up that part of my bandwidth to call in essentially just more of my true nature. So what you could do in this moment is you can grab a piece of paper, you can make a circle, okay, that's your vocal vibrational bandwidth, and then either on the same page or on a separate page, make your little bandwidth. So now you have your little bandwidth with some of the qualities that you've really embodied and integrated. Take a moment to affirm all the beautiful work that you've done, but also notice, are there any of those qualities that you have almost taken on as an identity that you feel like you have to be in to be valued, and you know that if you can jump into that expression, that you'll get others to like you, or you'll feel comfortable and confident, right? And maybe you start to notice that there's something more that you want to start bringing in. You want to feel more comfortable in some of these other forms of expression. So I want you to tune into your vocal vibrational spectrum, okay? This one here. And I want you to notice if there are some qualities within that spectrum that are not yet integrated, but that you would like to start to call in. Don't pick 50 different things, okay? Really only choose honestly 3 to 5 qualities, because we have to be able to integrate and digest this work. You can come back to this practice as often as you want. So notice, what currently in your life do you feel called towards? What forms of expression or experience do you want to call into your life more? Maybe you've noticed areas where you get particularly contracted or fearful, in areas maybe you don't allow yourself to go into when it comes to your expression, okay? And you're just going to note a couple of those. Just write down 3 to 5 qualities. Maybe it's confidence, okay? Maybe it's anger, okay? Maybe it's pleasure, whatever it is, okay? So you're just going to note those. And then what you're going to do is you can actually create a separate sort of mapping for each expression. So we're just going to go through one expression together, and if you want on your own, you can go through the other ones that you've written down. So I want to express more authenticity. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Now, I acknowledge that this isn't really fully integrated into my vocal vibrational bandwidth, but I know that it's a living part of me, right? And I have access to it. I just need to start increasing my capacity to hold all of it. And maybe I acknowledge that, hey, there's actually a certain degree of my authenticity that I do have embodied. I just want to expand to call in a little bit more. So we're going to notice a couple things here. We're going to look at the emotional body, okay? Emotional body. We're going to look at the mental body, right? And then we're actually going to look at the physical body. And we're going to notice where we are in reference to these different points. So for example, you actually might be very connected to your authenticity when it comes to your emotional body. You feel your emotions, you own them, you're aware of them. When you're on your own or with people you feel safe with, you're very connected to what you're emotionally experiencing, right? The authenticity of it, and you're able to share and express it. Maybe you are aware of the mental stories that you have around your authenticity. You're aware of the mindset and the belief system, right? Maybe you're actually already practicing a very authentic mindset, right? Or a belief system that supports your authenticity, okay? And then we also look at the body and we ask, what is the body doing? So we're going to explore our relationship to authenticity through these 3 different points. For some, it might be that what you're actually looking to integrate isn't your experience of the quality, but your capacity to express it. For others, you might notice that not only does your capacity to express it feel challenged, but you actually are challenged in your capacity to even feel the thing, okay? So we really want to notice that. And we're going to look here to the emotional body, okay? Does your emotional body have the capacity to hold and experience this quality, whatever quality you've chosen, okay? Maybe it's anger and you're able to feel anger on your own, but you can't share it with other people. Maybe you're not able to actually fully access that experience in your emotional body. That's important to know where you're at in that department. Then we're going to look to the mental body, right? Where are you in your mental experience? Are you aware mentally of the patterns, of the belief systems, right? Are you aware of your mindset that is potentially contributing to the challenge of integrating this quality? So maybe you know why you're afraid of integrating your authenticity. Maybe you can attune to some mindsets, some stories, okay, some beliefs. Maybe there's even a sentence or a form of self-talk that comes up to you, right? That you acknowledge often limits your capacity to engage your authenticity, right? So you're going to notice, where are you when it comes to your sort of mental, cerebral, sort of conscious mind awareness with regard to this quality, all right? And then we're going to look at the physical body point. And this is the ability to actually be in and be aware of the way your somatic experience, your body, relates to the experience of authenticity. So how does the block to your authenticity, right, where your capacity suddenly gets limited in how much authenticity you can feel and express, what is actually happening in your body? What is the shape, posture, right, form that your body takes, right? What does your body do in those moments? Okay, how does it contract? How does it brace? How does it dissociate or reach, right? We're all going to have a different somatic pattern. We want to be able to map out this point, okay? We want to be able to map out all of these points, because you might notice that, like, oh, I'm actually really aware of my sort of mental, cerebral sort of point around this. Like, I know all my belief systems. I know the mindset. I'm working on the mindset, okay? And actually, I am sort of able to feel a lot of the emotional elements to this quality, but I have no idea what my body does. Like, I don't know how any of this pertains to my body. And that's then a point that you really want to work on. And we're bringing all of these aspects into sort of integration with one another. If I'm aware of how my body responds to the threat of being authentic, oh, what's going to happen? What are people going to think of me? And I'm aware of the shape that I take, right? And I begin to practice somatic awareness, then there's a lot more that I can do, not only to integrate those patterns and somatically release them from the body, but also to repattern new forms of somatic embodiment, right? Learn how to come out of that brace and create more space in the body to authentically express, all right? So you can do this with any of the qualities that you're really looking to integrate. Really map out where you are emotionally. Are you able to feel it, right? Can you really be fully in the experience and it's just a challenge to express it? Or is it actually hard to access the feeling or experience, right? Do you understand what's happening mentally? Are you aware of the mindset and belief systems and self-talk that you're constantly running in response to this experience? And finally, are you actually aware of how your body literally holds and manifests this block, okay, through posture, through somatic patterns? And then we finally ask ourselves, what is the shadow? What is the shadow that we are afraid of meeting that actually is keeping us from getting all the way intimate and embodied with this experience of authenticity, right? If I'm afraid that I'm actually like a little bit weird, I'm strange, I'm a freak, whatever it is, and I want to be authentic, then that would mean that I have to authentically be the part of me that is weird and strange, right? And if I'm not comfortable with that aspect of me, I'm going to, out of highly intelligent, self-protective sort of mechanism, keep the full experience of my authenticity at bay, okay? So we can take all of the qualities that we want to start integrating and we can map them out in this way. And I really don't encourage you to work with more than, like, honestly 3 or 4, max 5 of these qualities, because you can only juggle and integrate so much at once. The power of our vocal expression, right, of our voice, allows us to start calling in vibrations, right? Vibrations that we might not be embodied in, vibrations that we might not be integrated in, all right? And by calling in those vibrations and actually feeling and expressing them, right? Not just feeling them within our body, but noticing what it's like to transmit them. This is a beautiful, beautiful modality to actually start to integrate the texture of the vibration itself, right? If you have a hard time feeling angry and setting boundaries, if you were to spend 10 to 15 minutes every day just not only toning and vocalizing whatever rage and anger feels like to you, but also allowing it into your body. If you were to do that on a regular basis, your body over time would be more comfortable, not only attuning to the vibration and texture of anger, but feeling it and expressing and vocalizing it. All right. And we don't have to go into a story here. I really like to cut straight to the core of this, which is the tone, right? Anger might have a lot of sentences and statements that come up, and sometimes it's supportive to work with those. But what I'm most curious about is, what is the tone? Okay? If you want to bring in more power and boundaries, you want to engage more anger. Okay? What is the tone that your body is literally uncomfortable holding, experiencing, not to mention expressing? Same thing with pleasure, same thing with grief, same thing with confidence. By attuning to and allowing the sound of that vibration, of that quality to come through us, we literally start to attune our channel to the vibration itself. We become more able to feel and receive that vibration, to experience it within ourselves, and then to express and transmit it outwards. So if you notice that there's a quality you really want to bring into your voice, I really encourage you to start practicing the tone of that. Don't just visualize yourself saying something to someone, okay? Actually allow your body, your physical vessel, to start attuning to the vibration of that very thing. What is the tone? What is the sound of that quality, right? Of that aspect that you want to call into your life and your voice and your expression more. So when it comes to integrating the vocal vibrational spectrum, embodying more of our spectrum, and expanding our bandwidth, right, our capacity, we're working with like 3 different components, all right? And the first one is awareness, right, which is why we did that mapping exercise. All right, we really want to be aware of what we're working with, right, where we're at. We want to be aware not just of the mental body, but of the emotional body and the physical body, all right? And the more we can be aware, the more we can work with our patterns in the moment. Because if I build up a practice of awareness, that practice of awareness starts to spill over in moments of connection, in moments of expression, okay? And awareness is really the foundation that we need to have. The second element is practice. Okay, expression comes through the body. It requires the body, which means we need to practice, not just visualizing in your head, but actually practicing the bringing through of expression through motor impulse, through body, through face, through mouth, jaw, tongue, right? Through sound, through expression, all right? And this is starting to revitalize these pathways of expression in the body. All right, and it's also starting to teach our body and nervous system that these forms of expression are safe. And the final piece is connection and community. And that one might be surprising, but if we think about how most of our blocks when it comes to our self-expression are related to relational trauma, right? I'm afraid to open my voice and speak or sing because of what you're going to think of me, because of the consequences. And most of the time that's rooted in deep relational trauma, our ancestral relational trauma, as well as the collective relational trauma. That's pretty intense, right, in our culture. Okay, so we have to understand that at some point when embodying our self-expression, there's going to be a degree of work, okay, that happens in connection and community with others. Okay, because at the end of the day, what we're really looking to do is not just express authentically in our bedroom, but to express authentically into the world and with others, all right? And so what is required, in my perspective, is connection and community with others, specifically in the beginning, spaces that are quote-unquote safe, right? And safe is subjective, right? Nothing is inherently safe, but ultimately what I mean is spaces where people are trustworthy, right? Where you know you're not going to be criticized for your expression and immediately rejected, because this is sort of like a fledgling starting to open up their wings, okay? And if you have never really shared yourself authentically, but you've been sort of practicing on your own, and then you go into a space that is not for you, right? That does not understand what you're doing and cannot meet you in your expression, right? You might be shut down or ridiculed or ignored, and that can actually just exacerbate the relational trauma that literally presents as the block to your vocal expression. We're not trying to do that. Okay, so for example, when I started connecting to my light language, to my soul language, I immediately knew that I needed to share it with others and that I couldn't get to a space of expressing it freely into the world until I found safety in other people receiving it. So rather than going to an open mic, right, where people probably wouldn't have gotten it, right, and I was an active member in like open mics, I was a musician, I was part of a musician community, but rather than doing that, which might not have supported me, I found some groups. This is when I was still on Facebook. I found some groups on Facebook dedicated to light language and like intuitive vocal expression. I found some private groups. I joined those groups and I started sharing little videos of my expression in those spaces. Okay, and this was one of the best decisions I could have made because I started getting all this feedback from people who understood exactly what I was doing. They were supportive, right? They were offering me beautiful reflection, okay, feedback, support, okay? And that started to create this sense of safety in my body. It is safe not only to express this, but to express it to others. It's safe to be received in this. And that started building all of these like data points in my body of like, oh, this is safe to do, right? And I did that maybe for 6 months. And through that 6 months, I started a YouTube channel and I started sharing my voice like with the world. If I had gone straight to a space where I wasn't going to be received, it could have completely shut down my expression and been like a little bit of a trauma for me, right? But I didn't do that. I chose spaces where I knew I'd be supported. I could currently go out to literally any open mic, bring my Shruti box and channel some sort of bizarre intuitive song, and even if the majority of the people in that space didn't get it or thought it was weird, I wouldn't care at all, right? I couldn't have done that when I first started bringing through this form of expression, right? Because I wasn't fully supported and resourced in it. I am now, right? I don't need people to get or understand what I do because I have, through these years, resourced myself and my safety more and more and really established not just a belief system and a mindset, but a truth in my somatic body that this is safe for me to do. A big part of resolving the trauma of self-expression isn't just resolving and integrating the traumatic experiences, it's creating new experiences for the body to reference. Okay? And so at some point, maybe you're still early in your journey of self-expression and you're not ready yet, but at some point, it is going to be deeply supportive and transformational for you to explore this experience with others. So I want to invite you on a 2-week journey to liberate your sacred impulse and awaken your soul sound. This is a new offering that synthesizes all of the work that I've done with regard to vocal awakening and vocal expression with my training and education in somatics and trauma integration. So this is the most sort of crystallized, expanded, and integrated version of the group vocal work that I've been doing for the past years. In this program, we are exploring the sort of yin and yang of vocal experience and expression, right? So we are going to be working on cultivating a connection with the source of your sacred impulse, the very source of it, that inner yin experience, right? Really establishing an intimate connection to the source of your sacred impulse, right? Which is going to bring that sacred impulse online as a felt experience in the body. But we'll also be working on the yang expression, right? Of actually transmitting the impulse, right? The sacred impulse that arises from your source out into the world through body, okay? Through sound, through voice, and through authentic expression. We're exploring both of these aspects, right? The inner and the outer, the yin and the yang, but also integrating them and bringing them together. Okay, because authentic self-expression is not just the output, it's not just what you express. It requires that you are rooted and grounded within, connected to your own inner experience, right? An authentic expression of our sacred impulse doesn't just require your ability to engage and fulfill the sacred impulse in expression. It actually requires that you're connected to the source of that sacred impulse within yourself. So we're going to be practicing unearthing, experiencing, expressing, and liberating our sacred impulse. There's going to be a lot of guided vocal meditation, a lot of guided somatic practice. We're also going to have a session dedicated to integrating the unresolved experiences and traumas related to self-expression. And for reference, I have an education and training in integrative somatic trauma therapy. I'm very passionate about somatics, about the nervous system, and about trauma. So I'm going to be integrating actual trauma-informed, nervous system-informed teaching and practice, right? To support you, not just in finding and connecting to that which you are, but also integrating some of those stories and experiences that are no longer true, that are no longer in resonance with who and what you are, and that are not able to support you in the fullness of your expression. I want to name that we're working with spirit here as much as we're working with soma, right, and somatics. We are really unifying both of these aspects, right, and understanding that authentic, embodied soul expression requires both a connection to our body, to our somatic experience, as well as a connection to source and to spirit. This container is exclusively live group sessions. There's not going to be online materials and chapters that you have to work with or complete. Okay, I'm going to offer homework at the end of every session, totally optional practices or perspectives for you to work with. And all of the sessions will be recorded, and you'll keep those recordings as long as you need them. So this is a group space, and that's a really important part of this offering, that we're doing this work in a collective, right? We're not just doing this in our own little bubble, but we're doing it in relationship to others. So there's going to be spaces throughout the sessions for participants to interact and relate with one another, right? To have conversations, to share. And there will be opportunity for you to share your voice and expression if that is something that interests you, if that's something that you feel ready for. We're also going to have a Telegram group active for the entire month. Okay, so it's a 2-week program, but we are going to have a Telegram group for the whole month. Okay, so there'll be like 2 extra weeks after the program closes where we'll keep the Telegram group active. And this is going to be a space for everyone to connect to one another, but also to share yourself, to share your voice, to share the transmissions or expressions that want to come through, right? And be received by others and start creating those new data points, right? It's safe to express yourself. It's safe to be received. I wanted to offer something that was accessible with regard to time, energy, and money. So I chose to format this in a way that I typically don't, right? It's a 2-week offering, no online materials. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to complete any assignments, okay? I've poured everything I have into these live sessions, and you don't even have to be there live because everything is recorded. This offering is available for $125 USD. If you can't pay that in one go, you can reach out to me personally, and I'll link you to a payment plan that will allow you to pay over 2 payments. Ultimately, I wanted to pour as much as I could, offer as much as I could around vocal expression and vocal embodiment and just the awakening of our voice and expression without it sort of overwhelming your capacity with regard to finances and with regard to also just time and energy. Soul Sound, the given name of this container, is going to run from March 5th to March 18th, and all of the sessions will be held from 12 p.m. EST, and they'll probably run about 3 hours. And if you sign up before the 27th, I have a little gift that I'm going to send you. That is all. Thank you so much for receiving this masterclass series. It's been such a joy, and I'm going to be sharing so much more on this channel with regard to the awakening of the voice and the integration of our somatic experience. Sending lots of love, and yeah, I hope to see you in a couple of weeks.